Good evening, everyone, or good morning, or good afternoon, or good day to wherever you are at. We are going to be doing another unedited edit. I keep seeing comments, from a couple people that say these kind of videos are helpful, so I'm gonna keep doing them until somebody tells me to stop rudely. Well, I don't even know if I should stop right when somebody tells me to. I don't know. I'm just gonna keep doing them until I feel like I've kind of covered my bases with most of the videos that I've edited. Today's video is going to be a standard gameplay type of edit for Mr. Joe. He's the #1 guy that I kind of edit for right now. So that's what we're going to be breaking down. I do again have my late night whisper voice mode on because it is 10:30 on a Friday night while I am recording this and the household is asleep and I'm trying to stay out of the doghouse. So I'm going to be using my whisper voice again. I hope it doesn't bother you too much. And I got a nice glass of water next to me to keep my mouth hydrated. And yeah, let's get into it. It looks like right now what I'm doing and what I normally do when I open up any of these kind of videos is I do my color correction and color grading first. And the reason I do that is I like to get it out of the way and so that I don't have to apply any kind of color corrections to multiple split up clips towards the end. Whenever I work with gaming videos, typically I have two files, at least when I work with most creators. There's an intro file, and this will be whoever's video is, it's them talking to the camera, it's a talking headshot, and then there's a gameplay video. So it's a lot easier for me to take those two videos and do some color correction right off the rip. And if you missed it, what I typically do for the talking head sequences is I make 4 nodes. One will be white balance. The second will be the contrast curves. Third would be skin color correction. And the fourth node would be any other adjustments I want to make for the saturation, contrast, details. It's a very basic way of doing camera corrections, but it works well for me and I haven't had issues thus far. And then I'm actually going through the gameplay right now and doing some quick touch-ups. This game is Warzone 2, and I feel that Warzone 2 in general looks very washed out. So a lot of times what I do for this game is I will, at the bare minimum, move the black point over, or I will crush the shadows. I think that's the right term. I will crush the shadows so that it feels more full, because right now the dark points are mostly gray in the game. You can see when I start doing some adjustments on this curve here, if I start doing some adjustments on the curve, there we go, it begins to look like a little more balanced, right? You're starting to see more of the blacks in the gameplay file. So that's what I like to do initially. I think standard practice is when you're doing color correction work is to do it towards the end. And it's a pretty involved process to go through and balance and grade all of your different video files that you've cut and pieced together. I do at the beginning. It can hurt your playback speed a little bit if you've got a lot going on, but I rarely have a lot going on, so it doesn't ever really affect my playback speed. So I like to do it right off the rip, and there we go. And I think, okay, good. So we hop back into the webcam or the camera footage, and you can see my 4 node structure, right? So I got the first node is white balance, second node is curve, third, it looks like I flipped my third and fourth node. It doesn't really matter. But yeah, I do one for skin correction and then one for any additional corrections that I want to make. So I went back to this clip in particular because the lighting isn't great. It looks like it's the evening time, and it's always tough making camera footage look good with low lighting. You can fiddle with stuff for a while, but if the lighting is not great, then a lot of times there's not a lot you can do. So I apply my grade to the webcam, and then I did something real slick right here. You can actually create a compound node with your correction nodes, and then I'm applying a power window so that it just applies to the shrunken down version of the webcam. Essentially the way this video is laid out, and I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to begin my sorting process, and I'm not going to show you guys this entire thing. I'm just going to talk over the methodology behind it for this first bit. So what you're going to see on the screen is me going through his intro and the gameplay, and I am listening to everything and watching everything and doing a rough passover cut of what I think should be included in the video and what I think is worth showing. This is, I think, a pretty common practice for any video that you do. It's a lot easier when you're working with gameplay footages because, you know, we typically will have one gameplay file and then one intro, which is what I mentioned earlier. So you're not working with hours upon hours of media to sort through. But you still need to sort through your footage to figure out what's the best part of the video. And I've started doing this recently, and it's a massive time saver, and it also improves the video quality a lot down the road. When you just take the extra 30 minutes to play through everything, figure out what's the fat and what can you get rid of. So that's what I'm going to be doing in the background. Let me talk real quick about how I go about making these videos. Typically when I do a gameplay, I know at this stage what will work decently well. You need some kind of opener, something that grabs the audience's attention within those first couple seconds that they click on the video. And this is, I'm finding more and more a crucial part of your YouTube videos. And it's not a new discovery, but it's something that I've been consciously making an effort to improve recently. And a lot of times what I am finding is that I spend a good chunk of time working on those first 30 seconds of the video. Sometimes, I don't want to say more than the rest of the video, but maybe equal parts, if not just a little bit less on the rest of the video. Because if you cannot gain somebody's view in those first 30 seconds, and you cannot retain that viewer for like the next couple minutes, then your video isn't going to perform as well. So the video is going to start with an opener. A lot of times with Joe's video, he has some kind of intro, some kind of talking sequence where he's talking to his audience. And a lot of people, I think in the YouTube space, frown upon that or say, get rid of it because you can lose people, right? People aren't interested in like what you have to say and this and that. But I would agree with that to an extent. I find it useful sometimes to include some kind of intro because you can gain that personal connection with your viewer. There's obviously an art to it and a balance to it. You know, you don't want like a 2 to 3 minute intro where you're talking to them and telling them about the gameplay, but I don't think it hurts to include sequences where you're full cam as a creator talking to the audience. They get to see your face. They can connect to you with what you're saying. So, where was I going with that? Oh, okay. So opener, which is crucial, and you'll see in this video, I spent a good bit of chunk of time on our opener. That normally is then followed by some kind of talking sequence with Joe, and I try to limit the opener / talking sequence to a minute. So if this is a gameplay video, whatever the opening clip is and Joe's talking, I try to limit it to like a minute and minute and a half, because otherwise if it runs too long, you begin to lose your retention and the video's chalked. So get through the opener, the intro sequence, and then hop into the gameplay. And once you get into the gameplay, I don't know if there's like a best plan of attack when it comes to how you make the video good. At the end of the day, if the gameplay is entertaining and the interactions are entertaining and what's being said, etc., 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 if that part of the video is entertaining, then people are going to stay to watch the video. I'm realizing now, the more that I do this, that you can really, as an editor, as for my job, you can really only accentuate what's happening in the video. You can't create the storylines in the video itself. That's not your job. Your job is to just really highlight what's happening and make sure people are seeing the best part of the videos, and working with the timings to either make it funny or make it dramatic, etc., etc. So my train of thought when it comes to editing these gameplays is we've got 3 sections: opener, intro, gameplay. I'm going to work really hard in the opening section to gain the viewers' trust, to get them to maybe think about watching the video. I work a little less hard in the intro to keep them there so that they can get into the gameplay. And then once they're in the gameplay portion of the video, I ease off a little bit more, and if at that point they want to watch the gameplay and they want to stay tuned to what's happening, that's up to them. That's where like the core of the video comes into play, and if the video itself is good, they will stay and watch. And if it's not that good, then you know, it's half a dozen one way, half a dozen the other. Is that the saying? I don't know. So that's my thought process. Hopefully I explained that well. The other thing to consider, and we'll get into the intro editing here in just a second. I know I'm rambling, but I think understanding the methodology is sometimes more important than the actual the technical part of the video. The other thing that doesn't get stated a lot of times when doing editing videos is time constraints. So a lot of times I will get a gameplay the day before, or maybe 2 days before, and you have 1 to 2 days to piece it together. And this video itself, I ended up piecing together over, I think, 3 days. Yeah, I had it Wednesday night. I started on it. I think that me doing this cutting process, I started on Wednesday, and then Thursday I did the intro, and then Friday morning I did the rest of the edit. So not 3 days of full work, but 3 days altogether of putting the video together. And I think in total of like actual edit time, the video edit came out to like 5 to 6 hours. So yeah, I mentioned it a few times in my streams and in different videos, but that is one thing to consider when you're doing your edits. A lot of times it becomes a debate on, is it worth it for me to do this? Like, is it worth it for me to try to figure out a new visual effect or graphic motion, or is it worth it for me to add a sound effect there? The more you go about doing editing, the more I'm finding I understand when it's worth it and when it's not, and I'm understanding how to make things faster so I can include more things that are worth it, etc., etc. So that's another reason why I go about editing the way that I do, because I want to prioritize the opener. I want to make sure that's really good, and then after that, I can work on the intro, because I'll definitely have enough time for that. And then whatever time I have left to work on the gameplay, I will spend whatever time I have left on that. So for this video in particular, I spent, I think it was 2 hours on the opening 30 seconds, which it's kind of fun. It could have been better, but it's pretty fun. And then I spent like another hour or so on the intro and the talking head part of it, and then it was another 2 to 3 hours on the gameplay. So that's a breakdown. Holy cow, I've been talking for 15 minutes. If you made it 15 minutes into the video and you didn't skip ahead, comment below that I want my brownie points again, and I will give you more brownie points. And whoever has the most brownie points at the end of February gets something, and we'll figure it out. But for the couple people who watched it, listened to it, or watched it all the way through uncut, where I literally just am rambling for 16 minutes, God bless your soul. God bless your heart. I really hope you find these useful. I really do. That's the only reason I'm doing these, man, is I hope somebody's finding these useful. If one person listens to this and finds it useful, mission accomplished. Okay, so it looks like right now I'm still going through the gameplay footage, and it looks like I'm getting towards the end of the sorting process, because this is the end game. And I'm gonna start editing the opening sequence. This is a gun loadout video. So in Joe's intro, he talks about the gun, and then he shows off the loadout. And then there's also a sponsored section, which is what I brought in right now. This was something I edited earlier, and we had to get approval for. So it's already edited. It's been approved. This edit took me like 30 minutes, a half hour to piece together. So yeah, I'm just playing it through right now again to remind myself of what it looked like, and maybe try to figure out how I'm going to incorporate it into the video. So at this point, I've trimmed out all the fat. I think this is getting to the point where it's getting kind of late for me. This is like a Wednesday night, pretty late. I've trimmed the fat, and now I'm definitely typing in a Twitch chat right there. And I'm starting to brainstorm how I want to piece things together. So in my head, I'm thinking about how do I want to segue to the sponsor segment, and the thing that came to my mind, excuse me, was those old-timey broadcast type things where it's like, pardon the interruption, or excuse this bulletin announcement, or etc. So I downloaded the audio bit from an old video that says that sort of thing, and right now I'm doing some thinking, and I'm thinking, do I want to continue tonight? Okay, we're gonna continue a little bit longer. I'm trying to figure out how I want to open this, and what I eventually conclude is this video is going to be based on an LMG. I used to play Team Fortress 2 back in the day. If you didn't play Team Fortress 2, there's a character called the Heavy. He uses a LMG, and if you don't know who the Heavy is, you would probably recognize him because he is memed on all the time. His voice is super iconic. His face is super iconic. And I think, okay, what if we do some kind of like overdramatic montage with his voice bits in it and some like classical music, and just make it super fun. You do enough of these games. I've probably done not 1,000, but I've done hundreds of gameplay edits at this point, and at a certain point, the creativity juices run a little low on how you want to make the next video fun. So whenever I get any kind of spark of imagination or spark of excitement for the video, I'm like, screw it, let's just rock with it, let's do it. So that's what I ended up deciding. And I think right now I'm looking for clips to use in that opening sequence. I don't know if I've like came up with the concept yet in my head. No, so I'm looking for some some music to use. And oh, I have, okay, because I think I start looking for, yeah, some classical music, because I'm like, okay, what would be fun? Let's use some, like, there was like a particular song I had in my head that I wanted to use. I couldn't find it, but I found something similar that I thought was good. So I download that, throw it in. If you hold Control and Shift when you drag stuff in, it will shift everything over to the left or right so that it fits in the timeline in its own space. And now I'm just playing the song back, figuring out timings, what part of the song do I actually want to use. And so, okay, sidebar. I stitched together a few OBS recordings to make this happen. I did my best to record the whole thing, but there's a couple sequences where I forgot to resume the recording. If you look in my media pool, you'll see that I've started adding some different sound bites from different things. There's like some Dragon Ball Z like screams, and then I got some of the heavy sound bites. So I'm just gathering the things that I know I'll use to make this opener happen. It's pretty rare that I have like a clear-cut idea of exactly what sound effects I want to use and the pacing and the effects and the visuals. It's pretty rare that I have that all figured out in my head. So a lot of times what I have to do is, instead of just sitting there and like thinking real hard, is I just start downloading stuff and dragging stuff in, and I just start playing with different sounds and pacing, and looks like I'm finding different funny sound effects in here that I don't end up using. I have this file where it's got like just a bunch of man-made like gun noises, you know, it's like funny noises. In my head, I always think like, oh, this would be comedy. And then after I play it back, it always comes out so cringe, and I never use it. So I don't end up using any of these sound effects files, which goes back to what I was saying. I don't normally have a clear idea of what I'm going to do. So I just start anywhere. I just start downloading some stuff and throwing stuff in and messing with timing. And a lot of times what I'll do is I'll use some kind of music track as the backbone, or if there is a video sequence that I know I want to use for like the full length, I'll use that for the pacing. But I start with like something that I'm going to use as my backbone, my foundation, and then I just go from there. So that's what I'm doing right now. I have these sound effects files. I don't use, yeah, see, I already pushed them off the side because I'm like, I don't know how I'm going to use these. And then I take some of the clips from the gameplays that I pulled earlier, and I'm bringing them in, and I'm trying to figure out timings. Like, okay, let's see, how fast do I want this to be? Okay, so he says, I think he says in here like 2023 it's going to be big. And I remember thinking like, okay, we can use that as an opener. You know, Joe saying something over just like music and gunfire is probably going to be a stronger way to open the video. And there's like a, I don't know music terminology, crescendo. There's a like a big like a there's like a it's one of those moments in the dang song that it opens up with, and hopefully you can hear it in the background. So I mark that, fade into that, and that's going to be the point that I use to cut to with the gameplay. So there. How about that? So from here, what I'm going to be looking to do is just figure out timings and what feels like it works the best. I'm not worried about effects or adding text or anything like that. I'm just trying to figure out the timing of the opener to line up with the song. You can see I'm kind of rearranging things here and seeing what works best. And I don't know if there's like a right way of doing this. I just kind of go with what I feel works the best. There is a clip where Joe says something else, and I can't remember what he says, but you can see I overlaid it on top of the adjoining clips, and I do that because what I'm going to do is I'm going to cut out his webcam. Excuse me, sorry. I'm going to cut out his webcam and use it as a way to transition between the two clips. And right now, what I'm also thinking is, I think I'm going to use some Dragon Ball Z noises, and we're going to make it super over the top and loud and obnoxious and hopefully fun, hopefully not annoying. I don't know. I'm really bad when it comes to comedic stuff. I don't know when things are cringe and when it's funny and when it's like internet funny and when it's just like internet try hard. I don't know. So I have a bunch of Dragon Ball Z Saiyan screams. I've got the heavy laughing, and I'm laying them over each other. And there's nothing more complicated than that. There's like one continuous scream from, I think it's Goku going Super Saiyan 3, but I could be wrong. So I got Goku screaming in Super Saiyan 3, and then I've got the heavy scream as well, and we're gonna bring in a picture of the heavy later in that we'll use. But I think at this point, I'm starting to figure out what I want to do with the video. Like in my head, I'm getting things laid out. I'm starting to figure out the pacing, like sound design is all there, and we're just kind of fine tuning. And then what I'll start doing is effects, like applying if that's what you want to call it, start applying our different effects. Oh, I freaking forgot. This is Black Magic, aka Bubba, aka the young goat, man. Shout out Black Magic. This is my guy. I was in his stream one day and he squealed like a pig. And I told him I would use it in the video, so I did. So this is the clip of him, and I use it at the end. Because it's funny, man. It's just a funny clip. Okay. So I think at this point we're just fine tuning. I'm going to jump ahead to the next part of the edit. All right, so it looks like I finished all my adjustments, and I decide I want to do some 3D text because I'm a masochist. I have a couple working projects where I do things in the 3D land, and this is one that I've used for Joe. And what I'm doing right here, don't mind his logo in the background, is I'm copying the nodes that I use. I have these nodes set up that have this lighting image and then the different reflect nodes to make reflective text. And so I was just looking for it. I found it, and I'm going to use this to make some 3D text. Yeah, so that's what I'm doing right here. I copied the nodes. I'm going to go ahead and drop in a fusion composition, and I'm going to send a message first, and then I'm going to drop in a fusion composition and start making the 3D text. So if you haven't worked in the Fusion page before, I highly recommend just watching a couple tutorials on it. It's a little intimidating at first if you're brand new to it, but once you figure out the lay of the land, it's actually pretty intuitive and it's really, really powerful. Yeah, it's kind of, you would be surprised the amount of things that you can do in Fusion, and there's actually like a separate Fusion software that you can use for just effects, but we're using the one in DaVinci, and I'm setting up my 3D text nodes, and it's going to be composed of a 3D text node, a renderer node to bring it into 2D, and then I'm adding my replace material node, and I'm copying over and pasting over the 3D material reflective stuff that I copied earlier, and it's got a blend node, and this essentially sets up your material like roughness and bump map to whatever material that you're looking for. So I'm gonna try to do it for this brush steel, I think it was. And if you've never worked with 3D materials, before at a basic level, because I'm very basic when it comes to this stuff, you kind of have a property for each thing on the material, right? You have like a roughness, you have a color, you have a texture to it, you have like a reflectiveness to it. In each one of those properties has a node associated with it. And so depending on how complicated you want your material to be, you connect something to whatever that property is. And for me, I just have three. I have a color, I have a roughness, and then I have like a shininess. And I connect that to my blend node, and then I connect that to my reflective node, which has my lighting to it, and then I connect that to the text. And I'm just doing some adjusting on the colors and the lighting of the text, which I don't think end up showing up anyway, so it's kind of a waste of time, but I don't know. I'm just an optimist, I guess. Let me take a quick sip of water, because I have been, it's a half hour in. Wow. Time flies, man. Time flies when we're just doing 3D text. Ain't that something? Hey, if you've made it to 30 minutes in the video, even if it was interrupted, even if you skipped ahead, I'll forgive you. Got any 2023 resolutions? I don't know if I have one this year. I was thinking about doing something fitness related. I don't know. I've done them in the past, and they've actually been like really good for me. Like one year I had one where I decided to say yes to do more things, and that was really good. So I don't know. I don't know if I should set another one up for 2023. But I spend a good bit setting up this 3D text. Does it take more time than it should? Yes. Definitely. I thought it was going to take less time because I've already done it before, and it ends up taking me a good chunk of time. So what I'll say is this, so that we don't spend too much time talking about it. I set up the replace material nodes, and you can slow down the video if you're curious about how I set that up. I set up my 3D text, and I'm looking for font right now, and I think, yeah, that's the one I land on. And then most of the time what you do is anything 3D, you attach it to a merge 3D node, and from there you attach your lights because you need to light up your text. You attach a 3D camera to set your perspective, and then you render it out and you connect it back to whatever you were trying to show. So that's what I did. All right, so it looks like I'm setting up my 3D camera and I'm setting up my lights. I do a 2-point light system, I think here. I have a point light underneath it and a spotlight a little bit away. I don't have great settings for these. The one thing that I do that's kind of useful is for the spotlight, I turn on the use target function, so that way I can move it around and it'll always be pointing at the text. So that's kind of a useful one. And then I do turn on decay for the light. You don't have to. I don't know. There's probably like a best way of doing it. I don't know what that way is. So this is the way I have it set up. And once I do that, I think I'm just fine tuning some things. What I'll do is I turn on the background, which you can see in the bottom left right now, and I'll make that completely green. So on an RGB scale, it's 0, 255, 0. And I do that so that I can key out the green background later. Oh, I had an animation here. Okay, sorry. Got ahead of myself. I do a delayed animation. It's with the follower effect. I'm not going to talk too much about it because I don't really want to. What you do to set it up, though, is in your text node, in the text field itself, right-click and select follower, and that'll allow you to add some delayed animation. So that's what I'm doing right here. I'm adding my delayed animation to have it slide up on screen. So that's what I do. And then once I have that set up, I turn on, like I said, the green background, and That way, when I bring it in back to the project, I can key out that background really easy because it's green. So that's super nice. I could render it out with the alpha transparency, but a lot of times when you do that, the file size ends up being a lot bigger and it just adds more complexity than it really should be. So green background, and then we can hop back into the actual edit. All right, so we are back on our main timeline, and what I'm going to start to do is, one, I'm going to key out the green background using the Ultra Keyer node, which is amazing. I love this node so much. So key out the background. And I think what I'm going to start to do, if I remember right, is to build like the celebration effect of the opener. Joe says in this opening clip, like 2023, we're doing big things or something like that. And so in my head, I'm thinking New Year's, let's just throw some fireworks on there and some sparkly things to make it fun. Because what I'm envisioning is, I'm looking for a sound effect for the text to pop on screen, and I wanted something like rubber bandy to sound. And I don't know if I ended up finding anything useful in here. So that's what I'm doing right now, is I'm just looking for like some kind of rubber band-ish effect. But what in my head, what I'm envisioning is this like over the top opening section, which is like a lot of noises. It looks real flashy, and yeah, like it's just goofy. So looks like I found something that I want to use, and I don't remember if I end up actually using this or not, but I guess what I could say is we're still working on like the first 5-10. Oh, I'm typing something to somebody. We're working on the first. Sorry, I'm gonna cut myself off again. Do you guys like, if anybody cares, do you guys like the keyboard in the bottom right? I figured it would be useful for like shortcuts and stuff that I'm using, but I don't know if it's just distracting. I don't know. Let me know if the keyboard is useful or if it gets in the way. What I was gonna say is we're still working on like literally the first second of the video, right? Like this opening sequence is maybe, I think it's 15 seconds or long, but we still haven't actually gotten into the edit. And I don't know if this is me being slow or if this is the right way you go about doing these sort of things, because I feel like that's what ends up happening for me for the most part, is I spend so much time trying to just figure out what to do and then how to execute it. And my editing skills are limited in terms of what I know how to do, what effects I know how to apply, and like how I want to paste them, etc., etc. So yeah, the opening sequence takes me a long time. So now I'm going through and I'm trying to find the right footage for me for these things. And it looks like I got a firework clip that I'm going to use. So I'm going to drag and drop that in. And then I also I kind of wanted it to cover more of the screen. I really liked that firework itself. I thought it was a good looking firework. I changed the composite mode to add. That'll get rid of any black parts of the video. So what I then do is I go find some sparkler-ish things, some sparklies to throw on there, and that'll fill in some of the rest of the space. So that's what we do. We got a sparkly clip, and I'm downloading these off of Storyblocks. It's the copyright video, music, sound effects site that I use, and this is the one. Storyblocks is the one that I actually pay for. Epidemic, Joe pays for. I like Storyblocks a lot for that reason. I find it's really useful for video editors. I've seen some people use Artlist.io. I don't know if anybody has actually used it and had a good experience with it, but I've been using Storyblocks for over, man, is it 2 years? It's been at least a year and a half, and it's been working well. So I got my sparklies. I know I want to add a glow to them to make it a little more vibrant because it was kind of dull. I tried using the open effects version of that. Didn't work well. So now I bring in diffusion, key out the black, and then I'm going to use, I believe, Xglow, which is something you download through the Reactor plugin. And if anybody's curious, they can ask me. But that's what I do there. Download or apply a glow node, and you can see it's just a little more sparkly, and we got our fireworks. I don't think the color composition is fantastic, but it is what it is. I think it looks fine enough for our YouTube video. 2023? 2023? Might have to get another cup of water. Dude, I've been talking a lot. The thing that's tricky about this video and the one that I did before is, I mean, I feel like with podcasts, there's natural pauses, and especially when it's two people, you can let the other person talk. Man, when I'm doing these, I'm just talking straight. Now I'm trying to talk during the whole time, so there's not a lot of dead space. There we go. We go on. We press on. Where are we at? Oh, okay. Just, I think, fine-tuning the effects themselves. 2023? Yeah, I think I add a glow to the actual gameplay because it felt out of place with the text and the fireworks, so I added a glow to that. And now I'm going to start doing my zoom cuts. And I can't remember if I mentioned this in the last video, but I've been really enjoying the transform open effects because you can do motion blur, and I was missing that for like the first year of me editing. And I think it's really nice. And the nice thing about doing the transform node on an adjustment layer is it will transform everything below it, so you don't have to keyframe each individual clip. You can just use one adjustment layer and it'll slide move everything, which isn't always what you want, but for right here it is. So that was nice. That was really useful. And yeah, at this point I have my, excuse me, I have my opening composition set up, and now I'm starting to go through my zooms, and I'm going to try to accentuate when Joe is talking, and then I do some zooms on the gun recoil pattern, the recoil pattern as well, when he's shooting at people like really far away so that you can see them. So that's something I do as well. Okay, so I think for the rest of this opening sequence, I'm just fine-tuning the zoom. So I'm going to cut ahead until I start working on the next part of the edit itself. All right, so I fine-tuned some of the zooms and the positions, and there's this sound effect below where the heavy character is laughing, and I decide I want to use his face. So that's what I'm going to do. I do use Photoshop regularly-ish through my edits, just for different graphic cutouts and that sort of thing. And if I ever want something outside of the gameplay that I need to throw in, Photoshop is really useful. So I found a funny picture of that heavy guy. Shout out to Heavy, man. He's been carrying content for a long time. Shout out Gary's Mod too, man. Shout out the Gary's Mod community. We love those guys. So right now I'm going through and I am masking out roughly the heavy head with the pan. Does not have to be perfect because it's going to be on screen for literally a second, maybe 60 frames, and it's also going to be much smaller. So I'm just making a rough outline and gonna go ahead and trim that up, export that sucker, and then we will bring it back into DaVinci. If you don't have Photoshop, I believe, I'm not gonna remember the name of it. There's an online service that you can use that has some similar features where you can do like subject selection and masking pretty easily. Is it Photopea? It might be Photopea. I can't remember. GIMP is also free. It does not have some of like the same smart object options that Photoshop does, but there are free options if you don't have Photoshop. But I have Photoshop, so I'm gonna use it. Okay, so I brought it in, shrunk it, and put it on Joe's face. And again, this is where using adjustment layers becomes really nice, because instead of me having to keyframe the image as to keyframe the come on, Brandon, you can do this. To keyframe the image to move along with Joe's face as I zoom in and shake stuff around, I can just use an adjustment layer to move everything. And what I'm going to do here is I'm going to have an adjustment layer for camera shake. And I actually have a default camera shake that I've saved. There was like a setup video where this guy had set up a natural-ish camera shake, and I saved those settings. And anytime I want to use a camera shake, I start with those settings and then I go from there. So got my camera shake. You can see it shaking with the laugh. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to keyframe the motion and speed of the shake to increase as the laughter goes on. And then we'll cut it out. And this is that part where I was saying, I would cut out his webcam. So I knew I would be using his text to transition to the next clip. So that's what I did. Cut out the webcam, and then that'll be used as like a good transition point. And really all I'm going to do from here, and I might skip to the intro, is I am just going to fine tune the camera shake. I'm going to continue to zoom in and pan around until things feel natural-ish. And then at the end, what you'll see in the final version is I do add an adjustment layer over all of this with a LUT that I'll use to give it a specific look. So the final colors will be different, and we add some crop to the top and bottom to give it a cinematic look. But this is the bulk of the opening edit. We have our song, sound effects, zooms, position, and I'm trying my little heart out to make it funny or fun. I don't know about funny, but if it came out fun to you or you enjoyed it, let me know. But I'm gonna go ahead and jump ahead to the talking head portion. We'll talk about that for a little bit. Hey, can I get a little 45-minute, 47-minute checkup on you guys? How are we doing? How are you doing? The one person out there listening to me 45 minutes in. Paco, if it's you, God bless your soul, man. I love you, brother. Thank you for listening to 47 minutes of me talk about DaVinci Resolve. It takes a special human to do that, and I think you're pretty special. So we finished the opener, and it is, oh, okay. So it ends up being closer to 30 seconds. I thought it was shorter than that. W, way to go, Brandon. All right, so we got our opener, and now I am going to start to piece together the intro. The what's up, YouTube? It's your boy, Joe Woe. What's up, YouTube land? And it's kind of a similar process for me when I do these sections as well, because what I would like to do is make the talking sections enjoyable to watch and not like you're just feeling, oh, Brandon, you can do this, man. My words are struggling to come out. We've been rambling for a bit. I don't want it to feel like, it's boring. That's what I'm trying to say. I don't want it to be boring. Wasn't that so hard? It's not that hard. Boring. I don't want it to be boring. So I try to think of little bits to throw in the intro. Whether it's, Joe saying something and then it spoofs off to like bringing in like a meme, or like throwing in text effects, or masking out something, or just anything to kind of keep the pace along, because we're 30 seconds in. Best case scenario, we've gotten people past the door. They like stepped into the building, and now we want to get them into the main room with the intro. So now what we're going to do is we're going to tell them what the video is about. We're going to show them the loadout, and then make it fast and painless, and then get into the gameplay. That's the plan. That's what we're trying to do. So, I'm going to do, I'm going to do a lot of trimming in here. There was a video I watched a while ago, and it had a good rule of thumb that said, if you ever repeat yourself in a video, cut that section out. So if you say like, wow, it's a beautiful day today, and then 30 seconds later, you're like, wow, what a great day it is, cut it out. You don't need to hear it. If they hear it once, they don't need to hear it a second time. So that's what I use for what I want to keep in the video. And then if I don't feel like it's super relevant to whatever the video is about, or if it doesn't add to it, cut that out as well. And a lot of times what you're left with is like a really clean version that kind of speeds things along. It doesn't feel like the person's rambling. It all feels important. I did add a custom whip transition in there, which is that pink box that you're seeing above it. Custom makes it sound like it's a lot more special than it really is. It's one Fusion composition with the transform node, and I think I'm going to do a short or a TikTok on how to do it, because it's really, really, really easy to set up. Takes you like 30 seconds to set up, but it's cool because you can kind of customize it to do whatever you want. So that's what I did there, and it basically just either whips or spins or zooms to the next scene, and that's about it. So that's what the pink box does. And oh, here you can see I'm applying that color grade adjustment layer that I was talking about earlier. W. Well, there we go. It all comes back. So yeah, I'm looking for like a LUT that just looks good. I don't want to do any custom color grading. I'm like, screw it. That looks pretty cool. Fine. I think doing black and white might have been better, like something less saturated, now that I'm thinking about it. I don't know. I think it's fine. Cropping on the widescreen view here. Give it a little cinematic look, and now we can see the full opener in all its glory. Added some speed locks there for seeing screens, and then there's Bubba doing his scream. Okay, so now we're in the intro. You'll see me do a lot of layering with the talking sections, and that's to do J&L cuts. I don't like doing the like alt drag with the audio. I don't know. I don't like it. So I just will drag one clip up to a separate line and then pull one clip underneath. I know that's not standard, but I feel like it's easier. What I'm doing now is I'm bringing in B-roll from the gameplay. If there's ever like a more long-winded talking portion, it's good to add in something visual for the viewer to watch, because otherwise they're just staring at you talk, and unless what you're saying is really important, they're probably not going to want to watch it. So there's a section here where Joe is talking about the RAL and how good it is, so I'm looking for parts in the gameplay that show that off, and that's what I'm doing. Oh, I noticed I added in a text note. So this is like one of those parts where I think I missed a couple things in OBS. I probably paused the recording and forgot to start it up again when I had started editing. So I added a text node with RAL text, or RAL, RAL text. I'm looking for an audio track for the second part of the intro. Joe has like one song that I normally use when he does his What's Up YouTube. I'd like to think of it as his theme music. I don't know if it's that serious, but I like to think of it like that. So I always use that. And then if his intro goes on a little bit longer, then we got to start bringing in some different music. So found an upbeat hip hop song that I'm using. Throw that in there. And what do I do next? What are we looking for? What are we looking for, man? Oh, okay. So this next section, he starts to talk about the gun. And originally, he had two different parts to this. So he's got one where he's talking like you're seeing him on screen now, where it's full screen. He's just talking about the gun and why it's good and why he feels like it's going to be the next best thing. And then he has a second part where he's actually showing the loadout and going over the different attachments. Well, in Brandon's professional opinion, I felt like him going over the attachments wasn't as useful and it was too long. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to overlay the first talking section over the second talking section. So that way we can still see the attachments and still see him going over the different things with the gun, but we get like the more enjoyable part of the talking section. And I felt like it worked pretty well. They ended up both being around-ish the same length. Yeah. So you can see I start with it fully zoomed, and then I add an open transform node to punch out on it and put it on top of his other webcam. And it worked pretty well. So I'm just listening to what he's saying, and I'm seeing what is important. We're cutting out anything else that is not. One thing I've noticed with the open transform node, and this is random, I don't know if anybody else has experience with it, but when I go to paste its attributes, so if I wanted to copy and paste that zoom, right, the timing on it is always off. Like the keyframe is like 4 minutes ahead or behind of the clip. It's weird. Super weird. I don't know if anybody else has noticed that. Yeah. Anyways. So copied over the transform node, and now I'm playing around with what he's saying and just figuring out what's needed and what sounds best and that sort of thing. So I do that for a little bit, and then I think after that, we're getting ready to hop into the gameplay besides the sponsored segment. All right, yeah. So now we're starting to get into the sponsored part of the video. So like I had said before, this was edited on a previous date, and this is this is not, I think this is another one of those things that's frowned upon, doing the sensor bar noises. It's pretty cliche for editors to do this when there's not like a good way to transition to the next clip or whatever's going on. But again, time is not your friend, and if you have something that you know could work, just use it. You know, screw the haters. You know what I mean? Who's with me on that one? All right. I do make it, or I try to make it not like a standard sensor bar noise. So I added some analog damage to the sensor, and then I added Joe's logo over it and play with the composite mode, and then added like a glitchy effect to it so that it blended in a little bit more. And this is me. This is my way of putting in effort, you know, not just like copping out and using the easiest transition known to man. Right? I'm being original. I'm being different. Look at me go. But this is where I'm going to use that soundbite that we downloaded way towards the beginning. The like we interrupt this broadcast to whatever, and I think I'm looking for right here. Yep. Yep. So there it is. Got the words that I know I wanted to use. And boom. Transition. Hey, we're going on an hour again, man. Time flies when you're editing. Holy guacamole. Hey, if you've made it to an hour uninterrupted, don't lie. What is your, I don't want to ask what your favorite Call of Duty is. That's kind of cliche. I was going to ask like a fun gaming question, but I don't know gaming questions anymore. Who are you watching? Okay, if you made it to an hour in this video, Who are you watching that streams these days? Are you still watching Warzone streamers? Are you still watching streams? Or just YouTube? Let me know. I'm curious. I kind of have to watch Warzone streamers for my job, but I think if I wasn't doing it for work, I don't know if I would, I don't know if I'd be watching Warzone right now. Warzone 2 is kind of in a weird spot. So, yeah. Okay, so I'm just replaying the sponsored bit, make sure it sounds okay. It does, and I'm going to look for a way to transition to Joe's outro for the intro. Every time Joe ends a video, he'll say something along the lines of, "Thank you so much for watching the video. Have a good day. Peace." So, yep. I think the transition I used here was like a continuation of the sentence. In the sponsored segment, he says, "Now let's hop into the loadout." But we'd already shown the loadout, so we do a transition to him saying, "Let's hop into the video," I think is what we do. But I remember when I played this back that I do match the audio levels, but I forgot to continue the song from the sponsor bit, so the song drops out and it's kind of funky. But anyways, that kind of concludes the intro. And now what we're going to do is get into the gameplay. So we're an hour into it, and now we're getting into the gameplay. And the gameplay edit ends up being pretty straightforward for this video, and I'll tell you why for a couple reasons. But one way I know, an easy way of jumping into the gameplay from the talking head sequence is to use some kind of music. The reason I do that is because there's pace, there's energy to it, and you can edit to that pace and kind of get people into the gameplay quickly. A lot of times these videos are loadout videos and people want to see a specific gun. They don't want to see the player using their ground loop gun. So what I try to do is I use the music to make a little mini montage to cut through the ground loop part of the video and get right into the loadout. So that's what I'm gonna do. I'm finding a song to use, and then I'm gonna throw it into DaVinci, and then we start leading in and syncing stuff up to the song. So I think there are better ways to open the videos, but one of the reasons I tend to have to do it like this is because when I'm editing for Joe or Zach or any of like the cracked creators, you know, who are playing high kill games, they don't say a lot during the gameplays. I mean, if there's a funny moment or sequence, sure, they'll say something. Or if they're talking to their chat, sure, they'll say something. But I mean, Joe often plays solo quad. You know, it's 1v4, so he's gotta say like, oh, this is that whip transition I was talking about. So you see, it's just a transform node, and then I am just playing with the zoom and then the position left right. So that's all that is. And the key to it is to change, what is that? It's like I can't read what that says. The something mode, you change that to wrap or mirror. I think I have mine on mirror. Yeah, mirror. I think. I don't know. What was I going with? Oh, they don't talk a lot. So you kind of have to bring energy somehow. And music is an easy way to do that. Okay, so this ends up being a more or less standard-ish gameplay edit because of what I had just said. There's not a lot of dialogue throughout the video. And to be honest, I think there are some good gunfights, and there's like a couple in the middle, and there's a couple at the end, and the gameplay overall ends up being like, it's an entertaining gameplay, but there's a lot of dead time. And there's a lot of moments throughout this video where Joe is kind of hanging out in one area. So as an editor, I'm trying to think about how can I make this fun for the viewer to watch. And music is one option. You can obviously do subtitles and goof around with what people are saying, but if Joe isn't saying a lot, you can't really edit it, or like you can't really edit to that. So what I end up doing is I focus on making smooth transitions so that the gameplay feels like one continuous motion. I focus on highlighting the gunfights, and what I end up doing is adding just some ambient, I think they're called low drones, but it's kind of like suspenseful noises. It's something to fill the dead space of videos and give it an air of eeriness. And I'll point out that when we get to that part of the video. So yeah, right here, what I'm doing though is we have that intro song that I mentioned, and I am just editing on the major bass hits. And we find this section here where Joe pulls up a kill streak with the binoculars. And I find that, or I feel like this is a good instance to do a good masking transition, because those are a little bit flashy. And when people see them and it's done well, they're like, oh, wow, like that was kind of cool. So then they stay curious as to what's in the rest of the video. So I go ahead and mask out the binoculars. If you have not done any masking before, there's two ways of doing it. You can, well, there's probably more than two ways of doing it, but you can either do it in the color page or the fusion page. And I prefer to do it in the color page because it's what I learned first and it seems to work decently well. And there are ways of doing it faster. Like there's ways to auto recognize certain things and track certain things, and I don't know, there are ways to make it better, but a lot of times what I'm finding this comes down to is just sitting there and manually going frame by frame and cutting out whatever you're trying to cut out. So that's what I end up having to do for this. I go frame by frame and I line up the hand as best as I can until it's completely covering the screen, and then we'll make that transition. What was I going to say about this? Oh, the nice thing about this animation is that it is relatively quick. I don't know if it lasts a full second, so you don't have to do too much masking. When you start looking at doing things that last like a couple of seconds, and we work with 60 FPS footage, that means going like 120 plus frames. It's just not worth it. So this one wasn't too bad to do. And I think, yeah, I'll go ahead and skip forward until this part is done. All right. So we went through, we fixed all of our keyframes, and now if we play it forward, thank you so much. Whoop. You see how quick it is too. When you're like going frame by frame, it doesn't feel like it's gonna be that fast, but it goes by quick. So yeah, did that correctly, and Joe gets knocked, and we're gonna go ahead and cut to him at the goo, which ends up actually lining up with the song really well, because the song itself has kind of like a high tempo, not high tempo. I need to learn my music vernacular. It's not the bridge. What would be the first verse part of the song ends right as there's a bridge or like a chorus section. And so as Joe goes into the gulag, the energy of the song dies, and then I can use my audio ender to close out that section. And I'm going to go ahead and play the this sequence all the way through at one time to see how it plays out. Depending on what the video is, I end up playing sequences over and over a lot, probably more than I should. Yeah, I think this looks pretty good. Do I do? I don't think I do any changes.
Literally feels so much better.
Yeah, I don't do any changes because I'm like, it's fine. Looks fine enough.
So much better, man.
The little audio ender thing that I'm talking about is that compound clip below the main music track. I've talked about it a few times, but you can end any song at any point by adding some reverb and creating a compound clip and extending it out. I've made a short on it, but it's really useful, and I would highly recommend learning it. So after Joe exits the gulag, this is another fun transition that you can do. The screen will always go to black as it is loading in the map again. So what you can do is you can cut out his webcam in that black sequence, drag it up above, and then you can fade on the next part of the clip. And what it'll look like is fading from the gulag to wherever you're wanting to be. So you could, I end up choosing a section where I think he's parachuting in. Yeah, I choose a section here where he's parachuting in. So it makes it more believable. But, you know, you could have him fade into like running on the ground and it would still look pretty smooth. There's still that like continuity of fading to black and like having the same webcam. So that's what I do there. And if I remember right, at this point in the video, where if you look at the timestamps, we're 3 minutes in, okay? So at this point, I've done all I can to get you in the video as a viewer. I got this opening sequence, I have the intro, and with a sponsored section, and at this point, it's just gameplay time. So all I'm going to do is try to accentuate the game, and like I said, there's not a lot of dialogue. It's a little bit slower paced. So my job is to trim the fat, let sequences build up to show gunfights play out. And you'll see right there, I add subtitles here and there. If I feel like it's something that needs a subtitle, I add it. And if I don't, then I definitely don't, because I cannot stand doing subtitles. Cannot. Don't like them. Do not like doing subtitles. Nope, I don't like them. And my focus as I'm cutting through this gameplay now is to just make transitions smooth and to keep the pace of the video going. Like, I don't want any really slow parts where nothing's happening. And that normally means cutting out rotations. And this sometimes gets backlash from people in the comments who want to watch the full gameplay, but unfortunately, they tend to be the minority. A lot of people's attention span isn't that long. So I'm going to edit for the majority of people and get to the meat and potatoes. And I tell those people, if you want to watch full gameplays, then you have to go to his Twitch channel. So I'm trying to keep the pace of the video. What I'm looking for when I'm cutting things is similar gun animations. So, for instance, I think previously I showed him jumping and cutting there. So I would scroll ahead and look for another section where he's jumping. That could be like a reload animation. Reload animations are always the same. So if he's reloading in one section and reloading in a second, that's a really good way to transition because the frames will line up. Sliding or sprinting, anything that has the same animation is a really good way to transition because it lines up perfectly. And right through here, this is like a really slow sequence, so I'm trying to cut ahead. And what I end up doing is I come back here and I think I add some kind of fun music to make it a little bit better. But yeah, right now I'm cutting through a lot of like the dead space of the video. All right, so I've cut a little bit further ahead and we're still working through this like middle section of the video, but you'll notice that I've added an audio track underneath, and I think it was there before we jumped ahead, but That was that low drone-y type of audio, and it kind of just like, if you ever watched like a CSI or like a war drama or something, it's just that like dun 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 dun, or like a wow wow. It's kind of just like an ominous noise or drums or something to just give it a little, I don't know, give it something. And you can see I'm adding another one in here as well. And in the first one, I actually have a keyframe in the audio to increase as he gets into a gunfight, right? So there's like a little tension build. The volume increases as he gets closer and closer to this gunfight. And I think I'm just playing it through to make sure it sounds okay. And I can't remember if I like it or not. Oh, I think I'm in, at this point I'm in Joe's stream. I think he had started his stream, and so I'm in there saying something to him. Okay, so yeah, I'm still working through this middle part of the video. We're actually getting close to the end of the edit, and there's not a lot left to say about the video. What I do decide to do is I continue to cut down the dead space and try to figure out what to keep, what not to keep, and I try to do some more match cutting and smooth transitions. And yeah, like in here, I add a zoom to the gun reticle because the person he's shooting at is super far away. You can't really see him, so excuse me. I had a zoom there so that you can see him. And towards the end of the video, I think the only major edit that I do is I add in like a suspenseful track and I give it a little bit of volume. One thing I forgot to mention is that for these like low droney background noises, I try to keep them, I think the rule of thumb is like 20 dB less than the primary audio. So if Joe's audio is sitting at -5 dB, I try to make the low drones at like -25 dB. And then if I want it to be a little more prevalent, I'll increase that by 6 dB. So I might go up to like 18 dB, or I'm seeing a lot of dBs right now. Yeah, so that's what I would try to do. And wow, are we at an hour and over 15 minutes of talking? This is tough. I don't know if I could do it longer than this. My throat is parched. Parched. We are kind of freaking onto something here. Let's go, Joe. Let's go. But yeah, I think I don't do anything, I think, particularly crazy through this. This is something pretty cut and dry. I'm going to be looking for smooth ways to transition. And I think the only other like major decision that I make is to add in that like suspenseful track towards the end, and then we do his outro sequence. So what I'll say is, if you've made it to the end of this video, thank you. I've for real appreciate any support, and if you found this video useful, please let me know. What I'm thinking about doing is I will probably do a couple more of these. And then after that, there's not really a need for me to continue to do the unedited edits, because I don't think doing more would add more value to you guys, because like everything that I know how to do is going to be encapsulated in one of these videos. So I did one with like the vlog, I think. I have one with the vlog, and then I have this one with a gameplay. We might do another one with like a gameplay, and then maybe like another mixed one, or maybe we could do one for like short form content. That might actually be useful. Doing one where you know, I edit like a TikTok or something like that. That would probably be useful. besides that, that kind of covers your grounds on everything you would need to know when it comes to editing. So yeah, shout out you guys, man. Shout out you guys. I'm gonna go ahead and call it there. Again, thank you. Please leave me any feedback if you have any, and I will catch you guys in the next one. Peace.